Welcome, delegates. We're super delighted to welcome you to this conversation with Mr. Narayana Murthy, who is the founder and former chairman and CEO of Infosys out of India. We're super excited to have him join us here at our Harvard conference for HPAIR and to speak with us and share his wisdom on technology, software, innovation, and the future of India and venture capital there. And so, Mr. Murthy, please, thank you for taking the time to come speak with us today.
Well, thank you, Zeel. It's an absolute pleasure to participate in this program. I'm a great admirer of Taiwan. My friend Maurice Chang, who founded TSMC.
Yeah.
I derive a lot of inspiration from him. It's a great place, one of the most entrepreneurial places in the world. So it's a pleasure.
Wonderful, thank you. And we're delighted to have you. And so before we begin the fireside conversation, I'd love to do some brief intros for Mr. Murthy and myself, and then to discuss the structure of the conversation. And so my name is Zeel Patel, and I'm the president of HPAIR here at Harvard. And I'm also a junior at Harvard studying computer science and neuroscience. And I'm very fascinated in startups and technology and accelerating the rate of technological progress. And so that's why we're honored to have Mr. Murthy speaking with us today, because he did that. He drove a lot of technological progress in software, specifically at the start in India, and then his impact grew all around the world right after that through Infosys. And so I know we sent out the brief bio for Mr. Murthy earlier, but just to summarize for the delegates in the audience and those attending from the live stream all around the world with the Harvard students, Mr. Murthy graduated from the National Institute of Engineering at the University of Mysore with his degree in electrical engineering. And then afterwards, he completed his master's degree from IIT Kanpur. And then before starting and founding Infosys, Mr. Murthy worked at IIM in Ahmedabad, and after at Patni Computer Systems in Maharashtra. And then what we know Mr. Murthy as now today as the founder and chairman and former chairman and former CEO of Infosys. And he's been listed amongst as the 12 greatest entrepreneurs of our time by Fortune and the father of the Indian IT sector. And that's why he won the Padma Shri Awards alongside his other philanthropic endeavors at the UN Foundation and the Ford Foundation. And now he does this fantastic role of investing in startups through the chairman of Catamaran Ventures. And so, Mr. Murthy, it's clear you've gotten this incredible perspective of many different domains in software and startups and technological progress and globalization as a whole. And we're excited to dive deep into all of them. So first, let's begin with your career in founding Infosys and the early days. So when we jump back to the early days of the Infosys, it seems you were always at the cutting edge of innovation, and you worked on India's first time-sharing computer system when you're at IIM Ahmedabad. And I'm curious to know what extent of your formational experiences in university in your early work affected your decision to start Infosys.
Thanks a lot, Zeel, for this opportunity. I must confess that neither the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, nor the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, played any role in influencing me towards my entrepreneurship. My passion to become an entrepreneur developed only after I went to France to work in a software company in Paris. This passion came from 3 lessons that became part of my DNA during my stay in Paris in early 70s. Those lessons are: 1, the only way a country like India can solve the problem of poverty is by creating jobs with good income. 2nd, this job creation can be done only by the entrepreneurs in the private sector by converting their ideas into marketable products and services, and not by the government. 3rd, the task of the government is to create an incentivizing environment that encourages these entrepreneurs to create more and more well-paying jobs. The government should do this by removing any and every hurdle for them. These are the three lessons. I learned these important lessons in early 1970 when I was working in Paris and when I had discussions on Saturdays and Sundays with experts on the ideologies of the left, the right, and the center at left bank cafes and at Sorbonne. I was also very impressed with how the Western nations had embraced free market philosophy, had solved the problem of jobs and poverty, and had created so much of wealth and prosperity for the common man. My beliefs, built on the foundations of Nehruvian socialism and my father's enthusiasm in socialism, started to appear shaky. I was becoming confused. I started wondering when my own country would become like the Western European nations. These ideas were strengthened by my visits to other Western European cities and by my experiences during the hitchhiking trip I took from Paris to Mysore, traversing Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Soviet Union, Middle East, Israel, Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan during the 70s. Let me stop here.
Wow, what a remarkable journey. And we had no idea that that trip to Paris influenced so much of this outcome. So that's a great lesson to know. Another lesson that you really emphasize, and this I found particularly striking, is in the early days of Infosys, in your first 4-hour meeting, you asked the team to rank what values mattered the most, and you listed respect as the most important goal. Respect from society, from government, from your customers, from your investors, and everyone in the ecosystem. And so this is certainly an unorthodox value for most startups today. And I wanted to understand, why was respect so important to you as a founding principle?
That is a good question. There are several reasons why I chose respect as the most important attribute for a company. We were from the middle class, all of us. For middle class people in any country, as you people know, respect is the most precious position.
Right.
They strive for respect from neighbors, respect at the workplace, respect on the playground, respect in the community hall, and respect for children in the school. I came from such a family. Second, we believe that growth, success, and longevity of a company come from earning the goodwill of the stakeholders. Conducting oneself in a way that results in respect is a good way of earning that goodwill. A respected company attracts good customers, it attracts good employees, and it attracts good investors. A respected company is treated well by bureaucrats and the politicians. Third, a respected company lives in peace with its stakeholders. Such a peace reduces tension for the senior management. Such reduction in tension will help the senior management to spend their time and their energy on bigger business challenges. This will obviously result in a better performance for the company. Now, I'd heard these things from friends and well-wishers, and I was the general manager of software in a company before I founded Infosys. I was also brought up by parents that the softest pillow was a clear conscience. So it came naturally to me.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's certainly quite striking. And thank you for sharing that. So zooming into more of the early days of Infosys, from what I understand, when you founded Infosys, it was certainly not a conducive environment in India for startups and companies, especially in the technology sector, to scale. And it wasn't even until 1983, 2 years after Infosys' founding, that you finally procured its first computer, because none of the desired models could be found in India domestically. And so now, in the span of a generation, Infosys is one of the biggest companies in India and the world, and it's had such an outsized impact. So what I want to know is, how did you grow Infosys from those early days to become the behemoth that it is now?
Yes, India of the 1980s was not an easy place to do business. Most politicians and bureaucrats believed that poverty was a virtue. In most post-colonial societies like India of that era, business people were seen as colonial exploiters. Leftism was a fashion amongst the intellectuals then. So any mechanism to generate jobs and wealth was very subtly thwarted by the bureaucracy and the political system. But as you know, Zeel, entrepreneurship is about the power of an idea to add value to customers,
Right.
to create jobs for youngsters, to create wealth for investors and entrepreneurs, and to pay taxes to the society.
Right.
Entrepreneurship requires high aspiration, hard work, determination, some smart work, austerity, and sacrifice. Sacrifice meant you had to be away for long periods from your family and the loved ones. It meant you took low salaries, you traveled by the cheapest class of travel, you stayed in city hotels, and you ate your meals at inexpensive places. Those days, it took 3 years and 50 visits to Delhi to get a license to import a computer.
Oh, wow.
It took 7 years to get a telephone connection. Today, India has probably the largest or the second largest number of telephones in the world.
Right.
Banks did not understand software, and therefore we did not get any working capital loan or what we term loan. Fortunately, we were a consulting company that got advances from our customers. Therefore, the only solution was to spend less than what we earned, make profits in the company, pay taxes, declare dividends, put back the after-tax dividend, and increase our equity. This is exactly what we did. Therefore, for us, the journey was an experiment in deferred gratification while retaining the hope and enthusiasm to work hard for several years during this dark period. That's exactly what we did. Let me stop here.
Right. Wow. Okay. Phenomenal story. And I think this dives really well into the next thing that the audience and everyone would like to know about is your belief in the power of software. When you founded Infosys, you had this pointed belief in what software could do for people, and how if the cost of computing went down, more people could access software and its impact. And you were an early believer in that technology. And so what I really want to know now is, from your exposure in venture capital now and investing, and your still belief in software, what modern technology do you think is going to drive a lot of progress in the next decades, and what is the future direction of software and playing a role in that?
Zeel, I'm not sure I'd be the right person to answer this deep question, but I will try.
Thank you.
My belief is that democratization of access to information brought by social media and the power of online e-commerce systems will create huge markets for future entrepreneurs. these technologies are leveling the field for traveling, shopping, ordering food from restaurants, hailing cabs, lodging, and most other forms of commerce for everybody. Such online platforms have also democratized the access to finance, education, healthcare, shelter, government services, and a variety of other services. This has meant, obviously, that the death of distance and the death of time differences.
Right.
You can order whatever you want from home at midnight, which I do often, and it will arrive in a couple of days at your home, well packaged. Similarly, thanks to the advances in Internet of Things, the quality, productivity, and remote man-machine interfaces will add tremendous value to homes, to information providers, and to even surgeons, just to name a few cases. Almost all of these will benefit from the self-learning ideas of big data analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. Let me stop here.
Wow. Okay. Wonderful. I think there's a consensus belief right now that the future of technology and certainly in software is on AI, is on models and training things like that. And then you also touched on other use cases in IoT and other domains. What I'm curious about, since you read a lot of papers in software as well, and you're familiar with the folks who have won Turing Awards and said sort of the frontier research, what research technology or what element of software do you think is going to play an important role in the future that people are not talking about right now? So not like AI or something like that, something that's underrated.
Well, I think that again is another question. But my belief is that I am not in the research area. I'm not in universities. I am not in the research part of large enterprises at this point of time. So it's very difficult for me to speak about what unthought of, what new technologies will come out as a result of all this research. However, having said it, my belief is that Internet of Things is going to play a very important role.
Right.
For a very important reason. That is, it is going to be a facilitator of man-machine interaction. That's what Internet of Things is all about. Now, within the machine, it is going to interface computers and digital technology with lot of other machines and gadgets, etc., refrigerators, air conditioners, cars, you name it. Thanks to D2A and A to D converters and transducers, etc. So it is by leveraging the power of computers that we can leverage the value of all these equipment that bring a lot of comfort to us. And there are a lot of areas where we have not yet exploited the power of computers in this man-machine interface. So therefore, my view is that Internet of Things, in some way enabled by artificial intelligence, by big data and by machine learning
Mhm.
will add tremendous comfort to human beings and thereby improve their productivity. After all, the very purpose of technology is to improve the productivity of human beings and bring down the cost of things.
Right.
And so, in keeping with that philosophy, I think we'll move further on this continuum. And that's where I see a lot of impact of technology will be in the future.
Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that perspective on technology. Let's shift gears now and talk about your time with Catamaran Ventures and the people who are actually building these technologies that you so passionately invest in and startups in that domain. And so I'm sure you've gotten a lot of exposure to many different types of founders and many different types of startups. What would you say are the most important traits that you have observed amongst the highest quality entrepreneurs that you have funded and come across?
Let me say first that success comes primarily from chance or luck bestowed on a prepared mind, as Louis Pasteur once said. Louis Pasteur put it slightly differently. He said, chance favors the prepared mind.
Right.
What it meant was you should be smart, you should have worked hard, you should have acquired the required knowledge, you should be familiar with your context. And if you did all of that, then chance will favor you. Now, my own view is that there is no entrepreneur who has succeeded without lucky breaks,
Right.
including me. Having said that, let me now state how I would enhance the probability of success of an entrepreneur for me to invest in that entrepreneur. So remember that the word probability of success is very important. As I told you, success comes from chance, from luck, from God's grace, etc. However, you have to work hard to enhance that probability. So now let me talk a little bit about how you can, or how an entrepreneur can enhance the probability of success. First, I would look for an idea that have the potential to take the market by storm. That means it has to be a seminal idea. It has to be an impactful idea. It has to be a stunning idea. Second, I would encourage the entrepreneur to do an inexpensive test marketing exercise to assess whether there is sufficient market for the idea. This is extremely important because I have known several great ideas fail because the world was not ready for those ideas. The market didn't exist at that point of time. So therefore, I would encourage every entrepreneur to do a very inexpensive test marketing idea before investing any further energy and time on that idea. Third, I would look for an entrepreneur who can articulate the power of his or her idea in a simple sentence, not a complex sentence, not a compound sentence. Why? Because simple ideas are easy to articulate, easy to understand, easy to execute, and easy to attract good customers, employees, and investors. I have several examples where ideas failed because we couldn't clearly articulate the power of our idea in a simple sentence.
Right.
Fourth, I would look for a sound value system in the entrepreneurs that I want to invest in. I believe that competence and values are the two most important attributes for enhancing the probability of success of an idea. That's why I chose the tagline for Infosys as powered by intellect, driven by values.
Yep.
Fifth, I would look for entrepreneurs who can lead by example in values, imagination or innovation, hard work, sacrifice, and teamwork. That is where I am a great believer in Mahatma Gandhi and his concept of leadership by example is what I believe will help every entrepreneur, because entrepreneurship is all about sacrifice. It's all about deferred gratification. And if you want your team members to believe in sacrifice today, hoping for deferred gratification, then you have to lead by example in that sacrifice, in accepting that deferred gratification. Therefore, leadership by example is the most important attribute for a leader, particularly a leader entrepreneur. The sixth, I would look for passion in these entrepreneurs about their idea and the ability of their idea to transform the world. I would say these are the kinds of things that I would look for in an entrepreneur to assess the probability of success of his or her idea.
Right.
And I believe that these attributes indeed enhance the probability of success of an idea. But in the end, I want everybody to remember that luck plays a very, very, very important role in the success of entrepreneurs. Let me start.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing those 7 pieces of insight. That's remarkable. And I think this is a fantastic segue to the final question I have about venture and startups that you've experienced. So we had Elon Musk and Peter Thiel speak at our conference not too long ago. And one of the points that they raised was they felt that there are too many people, too many entrepreneurs working on software, mostly because the cost of doing things in software is so low. And they didn't feel that there were enough people working on hard technology problems like genetics or airplanes or different types of just raw engineering problems. And that creates an inequality of progress for humanity, because we have a lot of progress in software, but less progress in other domains like health and things like that. And so I wanted to ask, from your perspective, do you observe that that's the same case, that there's a lot of progress going on in software and not enough in other domains, and what can be done about that, if so?
Well, first of all, let's realize that even those entrepreneurs who are using the power of software to succeed in entrepreneurship are mostly in assistive technologies. They are using
Right.
the new ideas and the new power of software to add value to hardware as assistive technologies.
Mhm.
Now, having said that, let me also say that they're all entrepreneurs who have succeeded very eminently in hard manufacturing. Now, Steve Jobs is a very good example with his MacBook, iPhone, iPod, iPad, and Apple Watch. There are lots of entrepreneurs working in healthcare, medicine, and surgery to provide cost-effective solutions. Moderna is a very good example of a vaccine that was most needed and that probably has earned the goodwill of most people as a very effective vaccine against COVID-19. China is a great example. China and Taiwan are great examples of huge successes as nations of hard manufacturing. Almost every gadget you see on the shelves of stores anywhere in the world is a testimony to the extraordinary genius of these small Chinese and Taiwanese entrepreneurs in hard manufacturing.
Right.
In India, they're all entrepreneurs working on inexpensive solutions for water purification, for reduction of air pollution, for harnessing solar power, for harnessing wind power, for providing healthy food, just to name a few examples. My belief is that in every society, entrepreneurs use the power of their ideas to find solutions to the problems that this society faces. This is how societies progress. Let me stop here.
Wonderful. No, that makes a lot of sense. So thank you for sharing all those examples. So let's shift gears now and talk more about your philanthropy and your belief in what a morally good use of wealth is for society. And so we had the CEO of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation come speak at this conference. And one of the points that he mentioned was it's very difficult for them and for other organizations to know which problems to choose and where to insert their wealth in. And so what I wanted to understand was, how do you personally pick and choose which problems are more important for you to have charitable impact on, and how do you measure that impact?
Well, I think that's a very, very good question. We operate at two levels. We believe that a nation can only improve economically in the medium and long term if we improve our higher education system.
Right.
This is the first level. At a second level, we also believe that there are lots of here and now manifestations of poverty and suffering that cannot wait for the higher education system to solve them in the medium and long term. These here and now manifestations of poverty will have to be solved today and tomorrow. Otherwise, they will die. Hunger doesn't wait for anybody, right? Hunger knows no law. Now, let me give you some examples of the here and now manifestations. These are like, for example, midday meal, midday lunch scheme for poor children in government schools is a classical example. Second, there is the issue of building hospitals in rural areas and providing them with much needed equipment. Otherwise, people will die. Now, we've done that. Then there is the issue of building small libraries in rural India so that children have access to books. Of course, we have also provided internet access, but we have built libraries in about 35,000 villages. Then there is also the issue of building houses and providing food and other assistance for the victims of disasters like floods and fire and tsunami, etc. No, they cannot wait for a long time. You cannot say, I will come out with a strategy which will provide solution to this problem 20 years from now. So therefore, the philosophy, the strategy that our family has adopted is to address both these issues. That is the first one that will find a long-term solution, long-term solution that will render the country very, very strong. And second one is a solution to the here and now problem that cannot wait. Let me stop here.
Wonderful. All right. So before I transition to audience Q&A, because I know many members in the audience are excited to ask Mr. Murthy questions, I do have one final question that I personally wanted to ask you. I know you're a big thinker on the culture of innovation and technical talent in India and encouraging more engineering talent in India and policies around that. And so what I wanted to ask was, when people say this is India-centric, and India is going to be the big pioneer of technological progress going forward, in a hypothetical scenario, the purely theoretical, if you were the Prime Minister of India, what would be the policy change that you would make to keep the culture of invention going positively in India?
Well, you know, our Prime Minister is an intelligent and capable person.
Mm-hmm.
He has lots of good advisors. He does not need advice from people like me. However, since an intelligent person like you has asked me this question, I will only tell you what my dreams for India are. This is not what I would do. This is what my dreams for India are. First, we have to make sure that we follow the prescription of President Roosevelt and focus on strengthening our democracy to implement the 4 freedoms: freedom of expression, freedom of faith, freedom from fear, and freedom from want. We must also have a uniform civil code for all Indians, and there should be no separate code for any specific religion. Second, we should improve the level of governance by attracting high quality of individuals to enter politics and succeed in it. Third, we should reduce the growth of our population, which is eating away all the wonderful progress that India has been making.
Right.
We should create incentives for states to reduce the rate of population growth in India. Fourth, we should use the tax money efficiently to improve public services like education, healthcare, nutrition, public infrastructure, and other such facilities. Fifth, we should work hard to reach the top 5 in the ranking of the ease of doing business. We should learn from a country like Singapore how to do this. Sixth, the government should become a true catalyst and introduce stable and long-term policies and desist from tinkering with them on a retrospective basis.
Right.
Seventh, and lastly, we should reduce corruption and harassment of businesses. Let me stop here.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that policy insight. That's wonderful. Great. So on to the point about the dream of India that you said. This is great. There's plenty of questions from the audience Q&A where the delegates want to ask you. So the first one is from Unanti Rawat from Mumbai, and she says, in building Infosys, you've mentioned earlier the role of your wife, Ms. Sudha Murthy, was very critical and foundational to your entire career. And so they asked, could you please share a memory or favorite moment from when your wife was foundational to building your entire career at Infosys?
Well, she is a much better qualified person than I am. She was always a first ranker in every exam. She's an engineer, a much better engineer than I am. She had a scholarship to do a PhD in the US in computer science. But because of a certain reason, she decided not to go. When we founded Infosys, she probably had a better right to be part of Infosys than me. But then she said that, look, this is your dream. Therefore, I will let you pursue your dream, and I will provide you all the help that you need to pursue this dream. In most difficult situations at Infosys, I would call her and then say, look, I have to take this decision. What this means is our family will have to make sacrifice. I will have to be traveling 300 days in a year. I'll be away from children. Therefore, you have to look after the children 100%. And you have to handle the family with less money, all of that. In every one of these cases, she supported me with a smile. In fact, there was an occasion when we had to pawn her jewelry to pay salaries for my colleagues who were doing a project in the US. She had no hesitation. She did that. Then she was the founding president of Infosys Foundation. She has done a remarkable job. So in everything, and she maintained excellent relationship with all my colleagues and their spouses. She's always been there whenever Infosys needed her. So I would say that I'm very, very grateful to her. Without her, I don't think I could have done, I contributed to Infosys.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And so the next audience question comes from a Harvard student named Jane Lee, who's contacting us from Boston. And she says, if you were to go back to your 22-year-old self, way back earlier in your career, what advice or what would you tell yourself in that young age now, given all the wisdom you have, especially since most of the students now are graduating into the pandemic and the enhanced labor market and all the changes here?
Well, I think this is another excellent question. So what I would say is the following. Doesn't matter what you want to become. You may want to be a scientist, you may want to be a doctor, you may want to be a lawyer, you may want to be a policy analyst, doesn't matter. Whatever you do, you have to remember some important principles. First, the solution to the most of the problems are in our mind. So therefore, instead of blaming the context for our inabilities, it is better to do an internal search and find a solution to the problem. That's one. The second, most of us fight a battle between our mind, which is the engine of progress, and our mindset, which is the database of all our experiences. Our challenge, Jane's challenge, is to defeat this regressive mindset in favor of her mind, because mind is progressive. The mindset, the regressive mindset, is based on mental dilemmas, is based on fear, is based on failure, is based on a feeling of inadequacy, etc., etc. Only those of us who win the battle in favor of mind, our mind, which is the dynamic, progressive thinking engine, over our regressive mindset, will be the ones who will change the world. Third, all of us will have to realize that we get respect and admiration only based on our performance, not our words. Because I have always believed that performance leads to recognition, recognition leads to respect, and respect leads to power. Therefore, if any one of us or any country wants to be seen as powerful, there is only one antidote, and that is performance. Fourth, there is no individual, there is no country, there is no society that will be strong on a sustainable basis unless it embraces a good value system. Respect for everybody, tolerance of others' views, open-mindedness, and as I pointed out, what President Roosevelt said, freedom from fear, freedom from want, freedom of faith, etc., etc. So I would say I can go on and on and on, but if we can think of some of these things when we have problems, I believe that. And the final thing is what the Hindu religion has espoused for over 4,000, 5,000 years. And that is, it says, you are all alone in the world. Yeah. In other words, whether it's right or wrong, everything will have to be decided by you and you alone. By surrendering yourself to noble thoughts, surrendering yourself to good things, by surrendering yourself to conviviality, etc., etc. So therefore, in the most difficult circumstances, you are all alone. In fact, most leaders are all alone. They have nobody to talk to because everybody is junior to them. Everybody is scared of them. Everybody feels that they cannot advise the leader. So leader is all alone. Therefore, that is why what I would tell Jane is, please surrender yourselves to good values. Surrender yourself to good feeling. Surrender yourself to nice things. And the last one, once again, it comes from the Hindu philosophy, and it says, this again is 5,000-year-old stuff. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
Oh, yeah.
What it means is a Sanskrit saying. Imagine 4,000 years ago, people had thought of this. What it means is the world is one family. The entire world is one family. Whether we are Indians, Chinese, Americans, Taiwanese, Singaporeans, South Americans, Brazilians, doesn't matter. We belong to one family. That's why we have to treat each other with respect. We have to treat each other with confidence. We have to trust each other, etc., etc. That's what I would say. Sorry, I took a little bit of time.
No, that's very good. I really like the analogy of the mindset is like a database of past experiences. That's, as a computer science major, that's very accurate, which I thought was fantastic. So for the final question, before I conclude this session, and thank you for your time, we have a question from Kesha Sundar, who's asking this from New Delhi, and he's a college student that just graduated from IIT, and he asks, there's a trend in India that most people start college thinking they want to be in medicine or in physics or in many different fields, but the talent converges to IT or computer science, and they all end up working in IT careers right after. Do you think that this is a positive trend for the long term of India? And what's your belief on this emphasis on computer science now?
Youngsters are becoming smarter day by day, year by year, generation by generation. Youngsters of today have so much of access to information that I did not have when I was their age. in 1967. So it is natural that decision making becomes more and more difficult when you have a plethora of choices.
Right.
Having said that, whether everybody should go to IT or a job in IT, etc., that's a very difficult thing to say, because every youngster at some level, barring a small percentage of students who are focused on research, who are focused on what the Germans call Wissenschaft, that means learning for learning's sake. They want a good job. There will be times when computer science people will get good jobs. There will be times when Wall Street pays good money. There was a time in India when only civil engineers got jobs. When we were building Bakranangal Dam, when we were building steel plants, etc., everybody wanted to be a civil engineer. This is a passing phase. What is important for a country like India is to create a platform for youngsters to make a considered judgment. That is, provide information on the positives and the negatives of each of their choices, pros and cons, and leave it to them. Let them consult whosoever they want. And today it may be computer science, tomorrow it may be something else, geology. Who are we to tell youngsters, don't do this, don't do that? I think that is not good. It becomes like Taliban, you know. I mean, we can't be like, our society can't be that, no, women can't do this, men can't do this. That's not the right thing. That's not the right thing. So my suggestion to the youngster is access as much information as possible, consult as many people as possible, and make an educated guess. In my own case, see, I had taken many courses in control systems when I was doing my graduate study. I'd done modern control theory, optimal controls, calculus of variations, etc., etc. But then I listened to a professor, an American professor, he was from Princeton, sitting at the next table in my hostel number 5 at IIT Kanpur, who was talking to a set of youngsters about how computers would transform the world. He was brilliant. He articulated so well. I went and sat at his table, and then I asked him to suggest 3 or 4 papers. He suggested them. I went to the central library. I read them. And Monday morning, this was on a Sunday, Monday morning, I changed to computer science. So with what face can I tell the youngster that he should not take computer science? No, he has to listen to good people. He has to read a lot. He has to make his judgment. That's what I would say.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you very, very much, Mr. Narayana Murthy, for taking the time to come speak with us at Harvard and our HPAIR conference. I know the 3,000 plus delegates that are in this conference right now, calling you from Harvard, from India, from 16 different countries all around the world, are very thankful to have had the chance to hear from you. And I just personally wanted to say thank you very much for taking the time. I really admire your career and everything you've built. And so with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.